So a couple of housekeeping items before I introduce Giacomo is we've got live translation headsets over there in the corner table. Just make sure you return them at the end of the presentations. And make sure to sign up for the trip to El Tunco tomorrow. And with that said, I'd like to introduce Giacomo Zucco, giving a talk about the perfect Lightning wallet. So go for it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Even if you don't use the instant translation, my accent should help Latin people a little bit. So, some disclaimer before I start. First, I'm not an expert in software development or in UX, and I will talk about UX and software development. So forgive me, I'm just a guy that speaks with people regularly because I do Bitcoin stuff around. So I have some opinion, which may be wrong, usually it's not. And second thing is that most of this is not a matter of objective truth, but it's just a matter of tastes or preferences. My tastes and preferences are correct and yours are wrong, but you're still allowed to have different ones. And I'm just using some examples. I may leave something out. Don't get offended. I'm just trying to make general points. So there may be examples of good wallets that are doing what I'm suggesting, but I just don't know them. And finally, well, you can read there, not behind the chairs. This is not really a talk about future improvements of Lightning Network wallets like L2 or PTLCs or stuff like that. This is considering some major challenges that could be solved or mitigated with the present current protocol and technology. So I will not talk about this evolution, not directly at least. First problem, the payment UX abstraction. I'm not really an expert in art either, so I just Googled abstraction, and this is the result. So this is the icon for abstraction since now on. I will use this also in the final table. So what is abstraction? First of all, okay, this is coming all together anyway. You may know that paying with Lightning is a problem. Think about people here in El Salvador receiving payments in Bitcoin with Lightning. First, you already have a challenge to tell them that you want to pay in Bitcoin and you have to manage that. And once you agree that you want to pay Bitcoin, you also have to basically negotiate which Bitcoin in a way, because they have to send you either some invoice or some on-chain address. This is trivial for people that have been in the space for a long time. People that already use first-generation wallets know that if it's way easier now than it was a few years ago, but still for somebody onboarding right now, telling the difference between an invoice and an address is still very, very different. It's still very, very difficult. It's not a trivial thing. And of course, if you use something like Chivo, where everything is hidden into incredibly hard UX traps, then it's even harder. There is a good explanation on Twitter. I think somebody named Jaime made a tweet a few days ago explaining how to unlock Lightning from Chivo, but still don't do that because some people are losing funds with that. But anyway, it's possible, but it's hard. And if you think about TCP/IP, the technology we use, it's also a layer technology where there is some base layer, which is IP, Internet Protocol, where everybody has to send packets everywhere in the world. And then on top of that, there is a TCP, where nodes can establish a stable connection where they only send packets in a route between one and the other. But still, even if we have these layers, when you open a browser and you search for a page, you don't know that the browser is actually first querying some IP nodes and then establishing a TCP connection. That is completely transparent to you as a user. You will just know that you are retrieving information and everything is managed under the hood. Of course, if you are an expert, maybe you want to tweak the options a little bit. But if you are a regular user, I think we have to get to a point where the UX is completely abstracted and you only know that you have Bitcoin sats you want to pay, and how the wallet, your wallet and the wallet on the receiver party are going to negotiate the transfer is completely automatic, or it's tweakable only by expert users in some hidden options that are not easy to fall into just by mistake. Another confusing situation, which is getting mitigated by Ellen, URLs, and offers and other stuff, are the situation in which you want to use Lightning Network to do stuff that was actually trivial in the base layer, like donating to a static address or giving you push payment instead of pull. This stuff used to be trivial in base layer. It is not trivial at all in a Lightning Network. And we have to make offers trivial again. So okay. Okay, this remote is weird, but anyway. So this is the phase that I will assign to the general ecosystem right now. It's an angry phase. I'm not that angry. I know it's difficult, so this is just a symbol to say that I think the general situation is not satisfying. What could be, so maybe I have to point it there. Okay, right. So a possible solution, a basic solution, would be to just create different accounts, like the ones you have in Blue Wallet, and instead of calling them Lightning and on-chain, you just make clear the difference between saving and spending, very clear to the user, very transparent, so that you assume that when a user is receiving a payment for a coffee, it's obvious that he's already operating within the spending account and not within the saving account. But this is a very basic solution. It's trivial to do. It's just a better UX on top of a Blue Wallet-like separation of account. Maybe instead of what they do in Blue Wallet, it would be better to have the same mnemonic generating both a kind of account, because for a user, generating the mnemonic phrases is very, very complex and scary, and they have to save it, to backup it. So it's probably better to just have one seed for everything, but still, you can have account. You can have a better, more advanced solution. Yeah, okay. A better solution is you just have one account, you just have one Bitcoin wallet, and when you create an invoice, you set up some abstracted things like your priority about speed, about cost, or about privacy, and then the payer can receive this request and can also tweak the preferences, but not like do a pay join with Lightning, something like you want to spend less, or you want to go faster, or you want to be more private. For example, this is just an example of possible, you know that I love trilemmas. This is an example of UX trilemma that you can make easier for the user to choose between. Then there is the Galaxy Brain version, in which you just have an account, and based on the amount that you set, most of the choices are, and also based on your situation with your Lightning channel balance and topology, and based on everything you already have under the hood, the wallet itself will understand what is better to do, at least at the first approximation. Not just inside your wallet, but also with the smart unshaking, in which the other wallet can actually say, please pay me on Lightning because I want something fast. But if you can't find a route, then open a channel with me, maybe a zero confirmation channel if we can or if we cannot. And maybe when we open a channel, we do that with a pay to endpoint or pay join or whatever. And this can be abstracted under the hood. Of course, it's very difficult and it can go very wrong. But I think that eventually users will expect to do that, at least at the first approximation, without tweaking with expert options. I think that there are some examples going in this direction. One is Moon, and I am putting, I like Moon, but I'm putting a face which is slightly less red and angry, because even if it's a good wallet, the way that they do something like this, abstracting completely the payment, is just, Roy was saying that yesterday in the panel, it's just being always on chain. So you don't have Lightning channels, and when you pay to a Lightning channels, you just swap in or swap out. This is cool, but it means that you cannot really optimize for Lightning channel, both in from the point of view of cost or from the point of view of speed of confirmation. Of course, Moon is very good at fee estimation, so they can somehow spare you from overpaying sometimes, but still, if you have a guy accepting Lightning, to stay on chain all the time is really suboptimal. And I think there is a better situation, well, no. There is a better situation with, this is very challenging, okay. With Breeze. With Breeze is better. Phoenix is, I would say, is the same. there you are always on Lightning, basically. It's the other way around. You're always on Lightning, and only when you have to go on chain, there will be a swap. This is probably preferable because the assumption of a mobile wallet is spending, not cold storage. And the assumption of a mobile wallet is that you are around doing stuff and sending money to people. So I think that especially in the long run, with the problem of scalability of global consensus, we can assume that the typical use case for a mobile wallet would be spending as opposed to saving. So it makes sense. I could put Phoenix as well, at least probably in the same direction. Let's go to the second problem. The second problem is the dilemma between the mobile phone application and a full option server running at home. This is a very complex dilemma. I use as a symbol, I use this Cisco representation of a two-tier network design model. Basically, at one extreme, you have a model in which every user has a computer at home, always connected with power and Wi-Fi or even Ethernet cable, and they have space for the indexes, the blockchain, the indexes, and everything. They have space for the UTXO set. They have space for the mempool. They have space for all the channel updates of Lightning, and they just keep this computer running all the time. And every user is like that. This is clearly unfeasible, especially if you imagine something like adoption here in El Salvador. This is practically unfeasible. Then there is the other extreme, which is actually used here in El Salvador, for example, with the Bitcoin Beach wallet, which is not a bad choice, at least to start, because it's practical and it works, and especially in a local community where trust problems are limited, may be a good starting point, but it may create strong problems of censorship resistance, basically. If somebody comes forcing people to KYC AML or censoring people because they don't vote the right political party or whatever, full custodianship means that you have to trust a single company, and the single company is very easy to regulate, censor, or shame into compliance of basically everything. Remember, we have some cases, the great service, Satoshi Bottle or something like that on Twitter. There was a tipping.me, Bottle Pay, thank you. On Twitter, it was a great service for tipping, was custodian, and they got scared for some regulation bullshit, and they had to close down. So that happens. There are some options in between, starting from one extreme. So here you have the full node at home for everybody. Then you have the remote option. So you still have the full node, but you can go around with your mobile phone, at least when you are in the beach, connecting with your full node at home where you have electricity and internet. Something like Zeus or Spark or something like that. This is okay, but still you need to have another home you need to be around with your mobile phone, but you need to have your server home because those money otherwise are completely custodian. Then there are mobile nodes, so there is the possibility to put Lightning nodes on your phone, in theory with AB Core, even if Bitcoin full node on your phone, but that's a little bit extreme. But even just a Lightning node on your phones, but that creates strong UX trade-offs, because when you open, I don't know, when you use sometimes Breeze as well, but sometimes also Eclair by a sync as opposed to Phoenix, you have to wait synchronization. It may go smooth, it may go not smooth at all. It's a trade-off. And then there are what I call partial nodes. Not even a correct term, but I don't have better terms. A node that does just basically one thing, which is storing keys and signing so that the funds are yours, but it depends on other servers in order to get time chain data or even watchtower function or whatever. A good example, well, the trade-off, of course, is usability versus censorship resistance. And the situation is not good, and I'm not happy. But it's okay, but I'm not happy yet. The partial nodes can, I think that the partial node solution is the best so far. I think that we could have servers providing these typical servers. One is the time chain data or blockchain data, so basically the Electrum server equivalent. One is the watchtower equivalent, so check for the security of your channel updates. The other one is swapping in, swapping out, maybe also requesting liquidities like in Loop or Pool or the new Blockstream product that has been just presented. Then there is, yesterday I just added the quotes on Turbo because Roy had a good point. Turbo channels are just zero-conf channels, and that's probably a more transparent way to call them, just like hosted channels are just custodial channels. So, but that's actually a good service that the servers could provide for you. And then there is routing, so trampoline node, like in Eclair. This is also a good function that the server can do for you. And none of this function require having your keys. None of this function require you to give the server your keys. So you're still pretty censorship resistant, at least under the most optimistic conditions. You can recover, you can do stuff. There is another thing that you can add, which is backup, client-side encrypted. Come on, you can do it. Okay, let's leave it at this. Don't look at the other sentences. You can do encrypted backups, but not just for, we assume that the backup problem is a very strong problem for Lightning, and it is. On Lightning, especially before L2, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. That's great, thank you. So, especially for Lightning stuff, we had to keep this toxic waste, especially before L2. We have to keep this dangerous information that cannot get leaked, cannot be backed up in a wrong way, otherwise you lose funds. But even for on-chain stuff, we are not anymore in a P2 public key hash situation where you just need the seed and the hierarchical deterministic derivation. You actually do need, for example, with Taproot, you will need eventually the Taproot script if you want to use any kind of the tap script conditions. We are moving from, with scriptless script innovation, we are moving from a situation where your seed can deliver everything to a situation where most of the things you need to spend are not directly derived from your original seed. So even for on-chain situation, you need a server providing you stuff. And this server could get your client-side encrypted stuff for you and give it back to you. I think a very, a minimum situation for this, Phoenix uses this model, for example. What I don't like is that this model would be better, in my opinion, with an open source, easy to install release of the server as well, so that you can use Phoenix with a sync server if you want, or just bypass it and use your own. Of course, that creates a lot of problems with the business model of the wallet producer, which is objectively a problem. But we have to find a solution to this business model problem, and we need the user to be able, with Phoenix, if a sync gets censored, you can recover funds, but you cannot use the wallet anymore. So the censorship surface is still pretty hard. You can hurt an economy very much if you censor a partial node, even if it's not custodial. I think something which would be even more cool, the Galaxy Brain solution, will be actually to go even a step further and to have a situation very complex to develop. Good thing that I just have to talk, but you guys have to actually work. The great way will be, in my opinion, to have, again? No, it was working fine. Okay. To have the servers incentivized with Lightning payment. Right now, when you are using Breeze or Async for some services, you pay them money. You pay the server money. So what about having an open source replaceable server where you actually, every time you use backup or time chain data, watchtower function, every time you use the services, you pay a little bit. Of course, the price is very difficult to define. And what if we can have one mobile wallet connected to many servers in a cascade of possible fallback scenario where if one fails, so you get the wallet from the App Store and it's connected with the server of the producer of the wallet and you pay them. But then if your cousin will install his server and he will have an incentive to do that because it will get a little bit of money, you will actually have to add the same and you will split the payment between one server and the second. And if one fails, you still have the second. And you can also mitigate privacy problems because you can actually split requests. If you have 5 servers, you may actually split requests for time chain data to different servers. You can open channels with one and with the other and mitigate censorship problems and privacy problems. Of course, incentive schemes are difficult to create. You need pricing, you need a lot of stuff. Example of progress, I think Blue Wallet has a good example where, because you can connect right now with your LND hub node. It's basically like that, but it's not incentivized and it's not one-to-many. You can only connect one-to-one, but it's a progress. And there is a very cool stuff that I'm not sure it's in production yet. A simple Bitcoin wallet, SBW, was before BLW, and he has these Olympus servers that were actually they were very interesting. I was very interested in those. I don't know if they're going to recreate the same situation with simple Bitcoin wallet, but I hope so. Very interesting to check out. Let's move to the other problem. Okay, the problem is Bitcoin only. What do I mean? Oh, the title is wrong, sorry. This is problem 3, Bitcoin only. Bitcoin only is cool, but there Bitcoin only functionalities. Fiat payment users are spoiled because when you use some fiat, 2 minutes, okay, we'll never make it. Okay, well, let's try. Let's see what I can do. You will never, so the user of fiat payment application, they are spoiled with a lot of other function, messaging stuff, and so far Bitcoin wallets tend to be very focused, which is good for a lot of stuff, security, quality of the code, but I think it's time to seriously consider integrating into Bitcoin wallet also a payment function or market function and stuff like that. The incentive for a user to run, in the example of the 2-tier, the architecture design I explained before, the incentive to run a mobile app is clear. You just use the network. But what are the incentives to actually run a node? Do you get paid enough just with routing and trampling and stuff or not? So if you add more functions, for example, what the node like Embassy by Starlight Labs do, like with metric server and stuff, you also do messaging and maybe even cloud storage. Of course, the more stuff you put into, the worse the security of the node will be. So there is a trade-off there. You have a giant attack surface, but if you don't store the keys on the server, it may be something reasonable. Then, the first action of every new coiner is actually to sell fiat for sats. So if you don't have at least an integration with a market with fiat, and maybe hopefully a good market with fiat, like a non-KYC decentralized market, I think that you are missing out the first basic action that every Bitcoin wallet user wants to do at the beginning. Maybe after they will use it as opposed to receive a payment for a product. But the very first thing they will try to do will be to buy sats selling fiat. And the last thing is that actually our founder, Satoshi, wanted to integrate a poker game system and the decentralized market within the Bitcoin Core software. That was not, from an engineering point of view, a great idea, but this is the will of our master. So we should put stuff into our Bitcoin nodes. So solutions. The solutions, of course, we have to basically introduce into our Bitcoin wallet, we have to introduce tokens, ICOs, NFTs, and DeFi. No, I'm joking. Now, the real thing that we want to introduce into our node is not, of course, the stuff. Wait. But vaccine passports and social credit scores. No, I'm joking. I'm not a Nazi. Let's try this. No. But okay. Marketplace, I'm going very fast, Alexander, I'm doing what I can. General encrypted storage, internet proxy, identity namespace, or even social stuff. John Carvalho yesterday hinted a little bit at some of this stuff into his possible synonym wallet. So let's see. What's the situation right now? Breeze has the great podcast situation. I think that's a very good example. It's a little bit, from the UX point of view, it's a little bit strange because it's outside the normal flow of a Bitcoin UX. It's a little bit a standalone thing. Blue Wallet has an integration with Bitrefill, which works very well, and also but it could work even better. And so it's still yellow face, not green face yet. And there is also the integration with markets like Hodl and stuff like that. So very, very good direction. Last thing, I try to go very, very fast. Standardization. You know this joke. You know there are a few standards. I create another standards. We have this problem with Lightning now. Why we have this problem? First, because the payment abstraction requires common standard. We cannot do handshakes if we don't have the same standard for addresses, invoice, or invoices becoming addresses, or pay join requests, or stuff like that. Bitcoin Taproot will make this stuff even worse because there will be new function that may be incompatible with the legacy ones, and L2 made this situation of proliferation even worse. There are some, for example, think about what John said yesterday about the /text account. That's very cool to use your Bitcoin key to authenticate to a server. That's super cool. But we had BitID and BitOut back then, which are still around in some services. And then you have the LN URL, which is another standard, which is incompatible. So we have to, guys, we have to standardize a little bit. So the good example of these, there are the beeps and the bolts. There is the BDK, LDK. Connor yesterday explained the possibility to use LDK to integrate. And actually, that's what Blue Wallet is doing in a very hidden option. If you go in Blue Wallet and you add a Lightning wallet and you press a lot of times, you will unlock an LDK-based local wallet. It's a progress. And also, a simple Bitcoin wallet with the Immortal library is working a little bit to this kind of standardization of stuff, but it's still very, very early. So there are some nice comparisons of Lightning Wallet. This is one not super updated, but very, very good, made by Verify. You can check a lot of functions of different wallets. There is another one, which is here. My comparison will be actually a little bit simpler. I just use the four things, which is abstraction of payment, two-layer system with the server and the mobile, some non-Bitcoin function, and some standardization. Of course, the perfect Bitcoin wallet, which doesn't exist, has green faces everywhere, and the worst possible wallet has red faces everywhere. And we should stay in between. Last slide, and then I go away. There are a few things that are... Okay, let's finish. Thank you.